Jimmy Garoppolo and the Seahawks. Wouldn't that make for some captivating television? That's the latest part of the 49ers rumor mill. On this Monday, ESPN's Jeremy Fowler reported that Seattle has done its due diligence on 49ers quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo. To that I say, well, I'm not surprised at all. We can expect reports like this while Garoppolo is still with the 49ers. In fact, any team that might need a quarterback or might be in the market for a quarterback upgrade would be asleep at the switch if it didn't do due diligence on potential upgrades. And Jimmy Garoppolo would be an upgrade over Drew Lock, the same Drew Lock that has been, well, I guess the U.S. Open tennis account didn't put Drew Lock in its crosshairs. It put some random Twitter user in its crosshairs, but that was a pretty funny exchange. You can just Google that. You'll see what I'm talking about. I think Drew Lock had some fun with it. But bottom line is that Drew Lock is the worst quarterback right now in the NFC West and the worst starting quarterback in the NFC West. And Seattle might be interested in an upgrade, but the 49ers might not be all too interested in trading Jimmy Garoppolo within the division. So there you have the potential impasse at the moment. And the good news for the 49ers is that they can handle an impasse at the moment because there are about 7 weeks before their soft deadline to jettison Jimmy Garoppolo. Now, what do I mean about the soft deadline? Well, the soft deadline comes on August 30th, and that is the day on which teams must cut their rosters down to 53 players. As we talk right now on, July 9th. So we talk on July 9th, July 11th. I have the date wrong. Yeah. Why do they say the 9th? Yeah, it's July 11th. You kind of lose track here over the course of the offseason. The dead period just seems to go on and on and on. But as we talk on July 11th, the 49ers don't owe Jimmy Garoppolo any money for the 2022 season. That money, the $24.2 million base salary for Jimmy Garoppolo, will only become a vested guarantee if and when he makes the 53-man roster. And the day to make the 53-man roster is on August 30th. That is still 7 weeks away. So up until then, the 49ers have full flexibility with Jimmy Garoppolo, at least when he passes a physical. And that's expected to happen any day or any week. Now, maybe it won't happen until the start of training camp because Garoppolo can't physically pass a physical until he's at the team facility. But he's recovering from shoulder surgery. He's expected to start throwing right around now, early July. And once he passes a physical, then the 49ers would be free to release him without any financial penalty. Before he passes that physical, Jimmy has a $7.5 million injury guarantee. So the 49ers are technically tethered, at least by that amount of money, to Jimmy Garoppolo. But once he passes the physical and before August 30th, assuming he doesn't make that 53-man roster on August 30th, but in that window, the 49ers would have full flexibility with Jimmy Garoppolo. And that is a 7-week stretch over which no one really knows what will happen around the course, around the entire NFL. You can have Deshaun Watson get suspended, and that news is probably going to happen at some point this month. So that might open up a possibility quarterback-wise for the Cleveland Browns. You could see a team like Seattle begin to really, really crave a quarterback upgrade over Drew Lock because they don't like what they see out of Drew Lock during training camp. Or you could have quarterbacks elsewhere get either hurt or arrested or, due to other reasons, become unavailable over the course of July and August. And that is how the quarterback market might evolve. So you look at the Garoppolo situation. That's why the 49ers are holding him right now, because they do need the market to evolve. As things stand at this very minute, there probably aren't many suitors who'd be willing to give the 49ers something, and they want at least something in return for Jimmy Garoppolo. The Seahawks right now are the only name that really comes to mind because the Browns aren't going to make a move until they know exactly what the deal with Deshaun Watson is. The Panthers obviously just filled their hole by acquiring Baker Mayfield from the Browns, and nobody else around the league is hurt. Everybody else, the musical chairs have stopped, right? So that is what we're waiting for. If anything, the 49ers don't want Seattle to sign Garoppolo at no cost. So that might be reason enough for the 49ers to hold on to Jimmy through training camp throughout this whole saga, because you don't want Jimmy Garoppolo to sign with the Seahawks for peanuts, or at least for peanuts to the 49ers. No trade capital in return. So, you talk about the potential deadline and it's a soft deadline on August 30th. And you realize that as you reach that deadline, the 49ers leverage in this situation has a chance to improve because there is value in a potential new team like the Seahawks onboarding Garoppolo for training camp. We talked about value in potentially onboarding him for OTAs, right? And there's definitely value in potentially onboarding him for training camp. Obviously, any offseason movement prior to this was scuttled by the fact that he couldn't throw the football, and teams, given the musical chairs, given the dynamics of the quarterback market, actually wanted to see Garoppolo throw a football, especially given his injury history. So now that that's passed, now that he's presumably going to pass the physical and be able to throw, you would think that there'd be potential value for a team, any new team, to have Garoppolo in the building while the ramp up to the season is happening, to acquire the playbook, to learn how to run the offense with his teammates, to develop some cohesion there. So say that, August 12th rolls around, 13th, 14th, 15th, say that month progresses toward the August 30th deadline. I think there's a very legitimate chance, especially if there is some movement around the league as far as injuries are concerned or Deshaun Watson suspension is concerned, there is a chance that teams will start to feel a little bit antsy because training camp is elapsing on them. The preseason is moving forward, and the season opener that happens in early September is looming closer and closer. There's a definite chance in that situation that a team will want to pay a premium to get a new quarterback like Jimmy Garoppolo in the building sooner rather than later. So as August progresses, I think the 49ers might see a change in potential leverage, potential options in this Jimmy Garoppolo situation. Now, just as a quick break, I have to give a shout out to Mike, who made this really good thumbnail for this video. Look at that. Jimmy Garoppolo there, with Pete Carroll, Brian Schneider, or John Schneider, sorry, the 49ers special teams coach is former Seattle special teams coordinator, Brian Schneider. But that's Jimmy Garoppolo with the Seahawks brass, the powers that be there. And I thought Mike did a really good job on that one. He actually asked that I use the one without the text. This is the thumbnail. This is the picture. So we can keep that up there for a little while. Just imagine Jimmy going to Seattle. The 49ers don't want that to happen at no cost. They would like the Seahawks to pay. Now, presumably there is a price at which the 49ers would sell Jimmy Garoppolo to the Seahawks. I mean, every man has his price. Every team has its price. There is a price attached to it, but I think it would have to be greater than any other potential suitor that's not in the NFC West. What is that price? I don't know. I don't think if the market has really defined itself yet, because the problem is, while the market was raging this offseason, right, you had Russell Wilson move. You had a lot of notable names move. Even Matt Ryan went from the Falcons to the Colts. Carson Wentz was traded most recently. Mayfield moved. Despite the fact that market was raging, Garoppolo was never really part of that market because he couldn't throw a football. And it's, I think no coincidence that Mayfield wasn't part of the market until after he recovered from his own injury, until very recently. So now we'll get to see what the market actually is in the context of the new market, because all those other guys have already moved, but the new market might emerge, might develop here over the course of August. And the 49ers have nothing really to lose by holding on to Garoppolo and seeing what happens. Again, that money doesn't become guaranteed. The $24.2 million doesn't become guaranteed until the soft deadline on August 30th. So if you're just coming in right now, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. I think my main overarching point today is that deadline pressure is going to resolve some issues, whether Garoppolo ultimately is released because the 49ers have to give up in the event that the market doesn't develop, or, if the 49ers do something that I don't think many people expect and keep Garoppolo through that 53-man roster deadline and hope for a trade opportunity to open up during the course of the season where they would only be charged with a prorated amount of his salary. Whatever happens, even on other fronts, right, with Nick Bosa, with Deebo Samuel, you always see deadline pressure kind of spur along action. You saw deadline pressure spur along action for George Kittle's contract in 2020. You saw the same thing happen for Fred Warner's deal in 2021. And I think you'll see it with Deebo Samuel's contract here in 2022, along with potential Jimmy Garoppolo movement. And it's just funny because we seem to be waiting on Deshaun Watson a lot this offseason. Remember, back when we weren't completely sure what Garoppolo's market would be post-shoulder injury, we're saying, well, obviously Deshaun Watson's going to have to move first from the Texans to wherever he's going to move. But Watson moved from the Texans to the Cleveland Browns. That was before this whole legal thing became obviously even messier. And then he signed the big contract. A very Cleveland Browns thing to do, right? Give that much guaranteed money to a player who might not be able to suit up for at least a year, maybe even more. We'll see. I mean, I don't know what's going to come down from that suspension, but I'm sure the Browns are sweating it right now. But we seem to be waiting on Deshaun Watson back then because a Garoppolo domino wouldn't happen until after a Watson domino. Turns out that a Garoppolo domino wasn't going to happen at all until the Garoppolo shoulder domino was taken care of. Well, now that the shoulder domino should be taken care of, it looks like we're waiting for Deshaun Watson again. Now we're waiting for suspension news on the Deshaun Watson front because that might potentially open up another Garoppolo suitor in the Cleveland Browns. So it's all wait and see. That's been the news of today. Jeremy Fowler saying that Seattle has done its due diligence on Jimmy Garoppolo. To that I say, no surprise at all. All right, why don't I answer a few questions about this? So we admire that nice thumbnail from Mike. Good job, Mike. And let's answer the questions about Jimmy Garoppolo or anything really. Maybe I go with another video about other stuff a little bit later on, but I'm sure you guys have some good quarterback questions. Pete Carroll didn't read the fine print. AFC teams only. I don't think there is any fine print. Again, I think that the 49ers have a price for any team. Hell, if the Rams wanted to pick up Jimmy Garoppolo, there'd be a price. It might be too high for the Rams to pay. But, I mean, even Seattle, a team that seems to be down this year as far as roster construction, the NFC West, there's a point at which the 49ers would say yes to trading Jimmy Garoppolo to them. I don't know if Seattle would be willing to meet that price. Obviously, Seattle would probably prefer to wait the 49ers out to see if they have to release him before August 30th before picking him up. But the 49ers, I mean, this is a game of chicken. The 49ers can wait and say, we won't release Jimmy Garoppolo. We have enough money on the books right now, salary cap-wise, salary cap space-wise, to keep Garoppolo, pay Deebo Samuel, pay Nick Bosa, because we've restructured a bunch of deals and we could restructure more. So we'll see who blinks first in this situation if that ends up being the case. But I do think that the 49ers will want to hold out for a higher price if they are indeed to trade Jimmy Garoppolo to Seattle than for any other potential suitor. I mean, I fully believe this rumor. If Seattle hasn't done due diligence on Jimmy Garoppolo, then their entire front office should be fired right now. Of course, you do due diligence on every player on this league. I'm sitting here giving you context. We've already had 12 minutes of context as to why it's unlikely that Jimmy Garoppolo gets traded to Seattle and how it fits into the larger dynamics and the larger strategies of the 49ers potentially trading Jimmy Garoppolo moving forward. Just because a team talks about acquiring a player and studies the potential impact of such an acquisition doesn't mean that it's going to happen. It's not a black or white thing. There's gray area surrounding these types of discussions in the league all the time. The 49ers, I guarantee you, were studying Russell Wilson. Players that they had 0%, a 0.0001% chance of acquiring, but they have to know the film on everybody. They have to know the tape on everybody to be ready for any potential contingency. So it's not surprising that Seattle has watched tape on Jimmy Garoppolo, but we have to add the appropriate context to it. The problem I have with a lot of reports is that they put this kind of stuff out there, and it's not Jeremy Fowler's fault. I thought he did a good job reporting this on his SportsCenter hit today. But then you have aggregators take that information, Jeremy Fowler talking about Seattle looking at Jimmy Garoppolo's film, and the aggregators frame it in such a way on Twitter as if a trade between the 49ers and the Seahawks is imminent. And that's an irresponsible way, and it's an irresponsible game of telephone of processing information that to me isn't really news. It's pretty obvious, and moving it downstream, which is where I think and I hope that I come in because I deliver an article on The Athletic or a video here on YouTube, adding the nuance to the situation. So yes, I believe I don't think it's a rumor. I think it's a report. It's a report from a reputable source, Jeremy Fowler, saying that the Seahawks have done their due diligence on Jimmy Garoppolo. Is it massive news? No. Is it worth discussing the 49ers trade strategy in terms of Jimmy Garoppolo moving forward? Absolutely, yes. And that's why we're here. Speaking as a longtime faithful since 55, all this talk about Jimmy G is just cheap because talk is just cheap talk because no one has a clue. Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of talk, but I wouldn't say that no one has a clue. I think that Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch have told us straight up that they're trying to trade Jimmy Garoppolo. We can then use logic to say, hey, Drew Lock isn't really the answer in Seattle. The Seahawks might be interested in a quarterback. We can use logic to say, hey, Deshaun Watson might be suspended for a long time. the Browns might need a quarterback and Jimmy Garoppolo might fit there. And we could use logic and our historical knowledge of the league to say stuff might change over the course of the next 7 weeks as far as quarterback openings elsewhere, to surmise that a market for Jimmy Garoppolo might open up before August 30th. And we could also use our knowledge to know that Garoppolo's salary isn't guaranteed until August 30th. So yeah, we don't know exactly what's going to happen, but we can make educated analyses of the situation as it moves forward. David, do you think the most likely thing with Jimmy G is the 49ers letting prospective trade partners talk with Don Yee about lowering his salary for the year to make him a better value? Yes and no. I don't think it's going to happen in that order. I think first you're going to have teams that are interested in Jimmy Garoppolo that want to acquire him, that are firmly interested in such a thing. Maybe it's only one team, and that wouldn't be good for the 49ers because that means the market wouldn't be all too robust for a good return. But, I mean, you'll have that, start to develop if it does. And then the 49ers will sit down with Don Yee and with the prospective team and start talking about a way to repackage Jimmy Garoppolo's contract so that it fits with wherever he's going to go. So, yes, Don Yee will be involved. Contractual discussions will be involved because two things need to happen. And they might not have to happen, right? For the Browns have 40 to 50 million of salary cap space. So they might be able to pick Jimmy Garoppolo up, without, any adjustments. But I think Jimmy Garoppolo will want an adjustment because none of his contract before, is guaranteed after August 30th, unless he makes a 53-man roster. So if some kind of movement happens before August 30th, it'll only be natural to restructure a deal that A, gives Jimmy Garoppolo some financial security this season, and B, might give him some financial security beyond that, or at least some kind of signing bonus that pays him some money sooner rather than later. He's on a lame duck year of a 5-year contract coming up here in 2022. That means $24.2 million base salary is not guaranteed. So I think that Don Yee would have to be involved for multiple reasons. A, for his client, B, for the prospective team, right? Because the prospective team is also going to want something in all likelihood that fits better within their 2022 cap situation than the lame duck contract that Jimmy Garoppolo currently has. What do you mean? A quarterback potentially being traded has nothing to do with him throwing? Yeah, I'm sure. The quarterback's ability to throw, especially a guy that's been injured a lot, has absolutely everything to do with other teams' potential interest. And if you don't think that teams were spooked by Garoppolo's inability to throw this offseason, then I'm afraid to say that you probably don't have any idea what you're talking about. If you were in an office pool to pick Jimmy G's trade date, what would you pick? That's a tough question. Probably something right before training camp, right? Because you would think that he'd be able to toss the ball around a little bit. But I don't know exactly how that's going to work out. Maybe he has to show up to training camp, pass the physical, throw a little bit there. Maybe the 49ers get some of those throws on film for other teams. It's really tough for me to know because this kind of is unprecedented water for me, at least as far as covering quarterback trades and potential movement. I mean, everything the 49ers have done in this situation has been relatively unprecedented, right? With the trade up to number 3 to get Trey Lance, but then they let Jimmy Garoppolo start the season in 2021. And then the surgery happened about a month into the offseason this past year. So it created all these weird dynamics as far as the trade goes. So I'm not exactly sure how that's going to work out. All right, guys, I'm going to get going. We went about 20 minutes today. Everybody like the video, subscribe to the channel. Thanks for all your good questions. Jimmy Garoppolo to the Seahawks now. I don't know if it's going to happen, but it's interesting conversation fodder. There is the thumbnail that Mike made today. All right, everybody, take care. Like and subscribe. We'll talk to you all soon.